Hello everyone, welcome to TalentEgg Talks, coming to you live from Rogers Communications head office in downtown Toronto. Joining me today, I'm very happy to be hosting this chat today. My name is Mary Barrell and I'm president of TalentEgg. And joining me today is Anna Servedio and Denise Bang from Rogers Communications, who are here to answer any of your questions that you might have about what it's like to work at Rogers Communications. So welcome, you two.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, featuring you on TalentEgg Talks. Now, I know that you wanted to talk about networking as being a key sort of skill set that is important for young people.
Yes.
We wanted, though, to make sure that the audience knew that if they have any questions, that they can give them to us live and put them into the feed in the comments section on both Instagram and Facebook during any time within this next half hour, and we'll try to get to all the questions that we can during this live event. So first, I'd like to really get a sense from you both personally what it was about TalentEgg's relationship with Rogers that actually was kind of encouraged you to do this sort of live event as part of your outreach to students and grads that might be interested in launching their career at Rogers Communications.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so well, thanks for having us, Mary. So I know that with TalentEgg, there's a huge presence with student hire, so it only made sense that Rogers partners up with TalentEgg, and you take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. And TalentEgg is so great with the partnerships. You guys give us the platform that we're unable to have. Working at Rogers, not a lot of folks know this, and my own little unique story here, how I started working at Rogers. About a year ago, I came here for a meeting and I was blown away by the space. And I said, no one knows that your space looks like this. We have all shared space. We have a radio cafe. We have really neat meeting rooms that are unique. It looks like a big startup, really. And I said to them, no one knows about this. You need to tell more people, and mark my words, I'll be working here in a year. And that's where I am. So TalentEgg really gives us that platform to be able to showcase our what our workspace is like in our culture.
Well, I know that you've had a lot of work, and you bring an interesting background to your work as program manager for campus recruitment, and it's really from the educational institutions that you've worked at.
Yeah.
And so you've talked about how the workspace sort of inspired you, but what was it like to actually work at Rogers that really fulfills you and inspires you every day?
Absolutely. You want to take it away, Chris?
Well, so far, I love the people here at Rogers. So one of the selling points that made me decide to join Rogers was actually people such as Anna. They're always friendly. They're very happy, and you learn a lot. I've learned so much since my time here, and it's been a short time, but I'm enjoying everything so far, and everyone's been so supportive in whatever questions that I have, and it's a great learning space and something that we want to promote to the students on campus as well.
Absolutely. Something else that's really great about actually working here is, like you said, the learning. We're so invested in the people here, no matter at what stage you're entering in your career. There is workshops, we do coaching, mentoring for any stage of your career, all the way up to the CEO level, which is really great. So that's one thing I love about working here. There's so many. And another thing is how fast-paced it is. So any telco company, we're very fast-paced, always neck to neck with the competitor. And with here, it's like you're working with a bunch of people that are working just as hard as you are, and it's such a rewarding experience. So it's stressful sometimes, it's high pressure, but at the end, you reap so many awards and rewards.
Yeah, and the people that I've met so far, they've been here at Rogers for a long time, which speaks a lot to the culture. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've mentioned it is a large telco and many other sorts of media enterprises.
Yeah.
What kind of roles do you have available for students and grads? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're always recruiting for students and new grads. we do recruit for our new grad program, which is a rotational program in September and October, and you start a year later, almost about 8 months later in the following May. So we've closed our applications for that, but we'll be reopening them in September. But some types of roles that we typically recruit for are huge in technology. So 5G, that new sexy word coming out, it's really great. Robotics, data analytics, marketing, sales, everything across the book, including media and our creative space. That's our new grad program. In co-op, we recruit all 3 terms, so the fall, winter, and summer. And those always happen 4 months in advance. So for example, right now, we're recruiting for our May co-ops. And the same types of roles. We're always looking for folks in the technology space, in the media space, and so on.
Yeah, people that are passionate about learning, that are into technology, whether they want to do testing, developing, or analyzing data. Yeah, we have a little bit of something for everyone. Yeah.
So it's one of the steps that people take in order is really to get to know you when you do your campus events. You wanted to actually sort of give some advice about networking because it's a part of your process, I guess, to get to know the candidates better. So what do you consider, what are the attributes that make somebody a really good networker?
Well, have they done their homework before reaching out to us? Because a lot of the questions that we would get is, how do I make myself stand out? And that's a fair question because we meet so many people on campus. We receive so many applications. So it's a good way to kind of like put a face to a resume when you meet them in person and they introduce you, and it shows that they actually care about working at an organization such as Rogers when they know a little bit about Rogers, like, oh, I know that you guys do so much more than telecommunications. You guys have networks, you guys own different channels, things like that. And it's just, okay, they did their homework. Okay, that's impressive. So now tell us more about yourself, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say. Doing their homework, treating any networking situation like a job interview. So you probably know entering an event what companies are going to be there. You may not know the reps, but at least do a little research on the company and what stands out to you. And that's a really great way to start a conversation as well. If you don't know that first step in what to say and how to introduce yourself, is maybe ask questions around the company.
And so, in your own careers, what kind of impact did that have on your own careers and how you launched and built your careers over the time?
Absolutely.
It's just so many people that we've met, and there's a little takeaway from each interaction that we have, even though sometimes it seems repetitive, but even in doing that actual networking, it gives us a lot of practice. Right? Like, no one is perfect, and like with students, I know that it can be intimidating, but honestly, once they keep going at it, then you just get better with practice.
With myself, networking has helped me, not just with jobs, not just with my career, but so many other aspects of my life. Networking for myself, the way I got my job at Rogers is because I actually built relationships with folks here. And one day I said, I really want to come work for Rogers. And that's how I was able to help launch my career, at least here. And even with when I'm internally in Rogers, we're so big. We're 26,000 employees, and sometimes you don't know who to reach out to, or how do we get some cool swag or some fun contests going internally. Just networking internally within the company helps us do our jobs as well.
Right. So it's a valuable skill no matter where you are in your career.
Absolutely. Networking is important at all points of your life.
Important. And it never stops.
Never.
So there's a question from Instagram.
Awesome.
How soon should I follow up with people I've met at an event?
Okay, this is my favorite question. The reason being is because, like you said, Denise, we meet so many folks. We go to so many events. At an event, I can meet over 100 people sometimes, even if it's a quick pass by. My number one tip to anyone I speak to is if you're serious about wanting to have a career at Rogers or possibly explore it, add me on LinkedIn right now or add me later this evening. And when you send that message and that connection, tell me, hey, I met you at that U of T event. Really enjoyed what you told me about the culture at Rogers. Would love to stay connected. That's so important because a year from now, maybe you don't need an opportunity now. Maybe you're not looking for co-op or a job or just a favor. And let's say you reach out to me a year later on that same platform, so LinkedIn, for example. I may not remember your name right away, but the second I see that message, I will remember you.
Yes.
So I would say about 24 hours after the interaction, and making sure you say something about the conversation that you had, or at least the event that you met myself or anyone you're meeting at.
In total agreement, because if you wait too long, chances are we're going to meet another 100 or 200 people along the line, and I hate to say it, but it is a tip that, you know, you might be forgotten. I'm like, who's this person again? Oh wait, U of T. Yeah, okay. And then now I'm at Ryerson, and then we're at York, and yeah. So for the ones that stand out and the keeners, the go-getters, they will do it as soon as they can.
Right. Yeah. And then reminding you exactly where and how you met them.
Yeah, exactly.
Giving
Very
a reference
important.
point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do you, we've talked about how important networking is, but how do you get better at it? Is it practice?
Definitely practice. Students, like, they have the career fairs or career centers that actually support them. I've given a few tips of what not to do. So before you even approach recruiters or anyone that you're networking with to know more about the company, generally, like, let them know, like, hey, I know that Rogers is a huge company. How can, what more can I do to stand out? And, I've heard from the news, like, we have a lot of articles online where we're in the news. Like, it's a big company, right? So it's not hard to find some sort of fact. So it's just like the reason, like, okay, can you tell me more about ABC that I learned about last week? So that will help them stand out. It's just through practice. Yeah.
Networking through practice. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can all think about interviews we've been to where it's, you wish you didn't say something, but it helps you better for next time. I'm sure you're not going to burn any bridges, and I think a lot of folks in the campus world understand that this may be your first time or one of your first few times even networking or interviewing or whatever it may be. So definitely the practice and attending those events that your school puts on, or your student groups, or just even looking out into the city. There's events all the time. Just going and practicing, going up to someone that you're uncomfortable with and just introducing yourself.
Yeah, or even take small steps, because it can be intimidating. Showing up is half the work. There are so many events where students would register and then they would just make excuses, and I get it, life happens, you have exams, you have projects you need to study for, or urgent last minute deadlines, whatever the case is. But showing up, even if you're afraid to speak up, maybe like do it baby steps. Next time, okay, show up. Second time, approach them and talk to them, and third time, so you get better at it.
Absolutely.
There's another question that came in from Facebook. It's a bit more specific, I think. It's, what recommendations do you have for a second-year engineering student like me who's looking for a job but has limited work experience?
Awesome.
Everyone has experience.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Good point.
When they say that they don't have experience, I tell them that's not true. Whether it's through volunteering. What about the 40 hours that they did during high school for volunteering for community services? What about retail jobs, customer service jobs, or anything? So there are so many parts where it's transferable skills that employers such as Rogers look for. And we understand that for students second year, third year, whatever year in engineering, they tend to hold back about what they actually know. So when you network, sell yourself, sell your brand, what can you do? And then recruiters, they're very good at kind of placing, the transferable skills. Like, okay, so, he or she did customer service. That means they can deal with difficult clients, right? That means they're patient. And they can problem solve. So,
Excellent tip.
So in some respects, you might have a candidate who thinks, oh, it was a retail job, maybe I shouldn't include it on my CV for this very important company. But you're encouraging them to say, no, that's really important, relevant experience.
Now, if you're applying for a manager role and you have a 4-page resume, maybe you take off that one. But we know that there's limited experience with students and new grads, and we're repeating ourselves there. But it was really a huge emphasis on that we understand, and a lot of companies do understand that, your retail experience is important, especially for Rogers. Customers come first. We say there's 2 types of people that work at Rogers: the people that support the customer and the people that support the people that support the customer. So it's really, that goes a long way for us, at least, the customer service piece, even if when you're entering the corporate job.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we have another question that came in from Instagram this time. What networking events does Rogers host that students can attend?
Oh yeah, we host lots.
So many.
Yeah. So we host them at schools in particular, but we also in September do something called an open house that we promote through your school boards, and this is across the country as well. So we have offices in corporate offices in BC, Montreal, all across Canada, and we market with your with your school boards about this open house that we usually hold in September across the regions. So you're able to come in and really see what Rogers even looks like, network with some folks as well. But our immediate outcome is just to really show you what life at Rogers is all about. Is it for you? Do you have more questions? Did you even know that Rogers is a huge media company? We're more than a telco company.
Yep.
We're a technology company. First movers with 5G in Canada. A lot of exciting things. And I actually completely forget I work for a telco company sometimes. So those are some of the events you can meet us at, is at your school or on our campus, because we call our offices
There are
campuses.
so many, yes.
So obviously you post the schedule, and we actually post it for
Yes.
you as well on TalentEgg.
Yes.
So anybody who's interested in attending a Rogers event can actually look at the employer profile for Rogers Communications and find all the events that are happening across Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So this is a really great question, I think, from Facebook. How can I appear interested but not desperate when I'm networking?
That's a good one.
Again, what do you know about Rogers? Why are you interested in Rogers when there are so many other options out there? How do we stand out as a company, right? Without looking desperate.
Yeah.
So it just genuinely looking into, what do we do and why us? Because the question for when we hire people, we would think, why them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a two-way.
And without looking too desperate, maybe, is don't make it so much about yourself. Make it about the person you're speaking to, right? Know that you're genuinely interested in the person you're talking to and the company you're talking with. I think it comes across that you're more interested in a conversation rather than just your own personal benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
So approaching this as you would in a social circumstance,
Exactly.
where you wanted to make a good impression and also show that you know that something about the company that you represent,
Yeah.
Rogers Communication, but treat it as also a pleasant social experience.
Yeah. We would get students that would just come up to them and was like, hey, what kind of jobs do you have? Okay, cool. Okay, that's it, done. Conversation's done.
Yeah. Seem genuinely interested.
Yes. So like, okay, you want to work for us? Why us? And then what kind of jobs do you have? Well, what do you study?
Yeah.
Right. What do you want? Right.
Yeah.
So here's another question that's actually quite specific, again, about the application process, assuming they've gone to some networking experiences. When I apply for a job with Rogers, who should I be addressing my cover letter to?
Good question. Can be a little difficult sometimes. So for our applications personally, we always have who the hiring manager is on the job description. I would always address it to the hiring manager, even though the recruiter's the first person to look at that resume or cover letter. It's great to always address it to the hiring manager, because at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decision. If there is, let's say you're applying for other companies, just some general tips. If there's ever not a hiring manager or a point of contact, it's easy to say, dear HR department, to whoever it may concern, anything related to the company or HR, because you know that a recruiter is probably going to be the first person to look at it. I would do something along those lines.
Definitely. And I would suggest maybe avoid the titles such as like Mr., Miss.
Yeah.
Because at this day and age, with the names, they can be confusing, and it would be better not to mention those titles at all, just on the off chance that you're wrong. I've received quite a few cover letters that were addressed to Mr. Bang. And I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
That's me.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
So here's a live question from Instagram. What is the appropriate dress code for networking, in your view?
Yeah.
I think safest is to be business casual.
Yep.
Safest bet. And if you're overdressed, that's fine. You can always remove a layer. If you have a blazer, remove the layer. But then if you go into a networking event where people are dressed up and you're dressed down, it's a little bit more difficult to find resource to, like, oh no, where do I find a tie? Or, but because we also understand that if we go on campus, students, you guys are wearing sweatpants, you guys are wearing whatever the case is, For campus, it's a little bit different, and we're a little bit more forgiving and
Yes.
understanding. But I would say safest bet business casual.
Business casual. Even
Yeah.
a pair of black jeans sometimes look great.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
with a blazer. Like
Yeah.
it's very easy to come across business casual without breaking the bank as well.
Yes, I agree.
Well, that's great advice. Here's another one from Instagram. What are the most important skills for a marketing or data analyst co-op at Rogers?
Ooh, that's a good question. Marketing or data analyst?
Yes.
Very important. Storytelling. Huge. If you're able to tell a story,
Yeah.
it'd be great if you can analyze the data.
Yeah.
I can analyze data as well. But how do you tell that story? What do you do with that
Yeah.
data afterwards?
Yeah.
So giving examples maybe of coursework that you've done where you've analyzed a set of data or you've researched something and then you're able to tell a story and provide a recommendation afterwards. So putting that relevant coursework in there is super important.
So that combines technical skills as well as soft skills, like
Exactly.
communication and writing.
Exactly. We always say it's really great to have someone that can analyze all this data, but if you can't tell the story,
There's no
that's
point.
useless
Yeah,
for us.
there's no point if you
Yeah.
can't tell a story. Like, why are you analyzing the data? What are the results? So the question to ask is, so what?
Yes.
So what? Why are you showing us these numbers or these facts? What does it mean to me? Why should the person that is receiving the results or the numbers, whatever the case is, why should they care?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Storytelling.
Yes, definitely.
Here's another question from Facebook, which I think is really useful to the audience out there. If I'm not entirely sure what specific role I'm looking for, how do I communicate that?
That's fair. That is completely fair. So when you start off in your career and you kind of test the waters, whether it's through internships or whatever the case is, it's okay not to like the first job that you're with. I know people that have been in the industry for years and years and they just do a switch. Right? So it's fine. So as long as they keep an open mind and show that they're interested in investing and learning the role before changing it too quickly, because we also value commitment to the job, then we're also like committed in providing you the tools and training and development that will grow you to be a successful whatever role that they want to be, pretty much.
And the flip side of that, so let's say before recruitment, before you land the job and you still don't know what you want to do or you don't know what you're interested in, my number one tip is don't apply for everything. And maybe my recruiters will be mad at me after, but we can see on the back end which jobs and how many there's applied. So be a little targeted. And then in the cases that you don't know how to be more targeted, reach out on LinkedIn, just ask some questions. Even if it's over a message or saying, do you mind jumping on the call? This is my exact question. Letting us know what your question is so we know what the phone call's about. We can come a little prepared and then we can provide insight. Well, based off your interest, we have roles here that you would be interested in on, here they are. It's really hard to tell what a job is just by a job description. But being able to say what you're interested in and your likes, dislikes, the recruiter is better able to tell you jobs that you're suitable for.
Well, that's great to know that you're available for people.
Yeah.
If they have any questions. And so actually that kind of goes to another question that was submitted. Is in-person networking better than email?
Yes, in person, there's so much value in meeting someone face to face. And if you get a chance to, you can read their body language. It's so hard to read the tone of a message through an email. And maybe some people, they're not the best or eloquent writers in emails, but they're great speakers in person, or vice versa. But we very much prefer in person. And sometimes if it's not possible, and if they're not comfortable with in person, reach out through an email, but be open to an in-person meeting.
Here's a question from Facebook Live. How can I stand out at the networking event?
That's a good question. We always get, how do you stand out on a resume?
Yeah.
How to stand out on a networking event. Sometimes there's always one person that gets sworn by the group of students to ask all those questions. And what I like to do, so I'm putting it back on actually the companies and the recruiters and the business reps on how to make others stand out, make others feel comfortable. Sometimes I will be talking to a group of students and I see a bunch of them kind of looking around and waiting, I invite them into the conversation. So I actually think that's a little bit on the companies, the recruiters, the business reps, to be able to ensure that everyone feels included, because it is overwhelming if you're talking to only one person and there's a line of 10 people waiting. Let's make it a group conversation. How do you stand out in that group? Ask questions. Be genuinely interested. Any question is a great question, even if you're asking about the company and the culture. That's always my go-to question when I'm stumped.
And maybe even work on their elevator pitch ahead of time. It's like a 60-second statement that they would have. So it's like, okay, so my name is Denise Bang. I'm studying HR because I enjoy bridging and supporting business and the people, and I'm looking for an opportunity within that field. And I heard that, Rogers has like a massive HR department that I can grow into. So that's just an example, right? So something like that. Yeah, like if they're short on time. And for the student side, it gets repetitive for them a lot because they're going from booth to booth, different events, and I get it. They have to repeat themselves quite often because we have to do that too when students ask us, so what does Rogers do? What opportunities do you guys have, right? So it's repetitive on both sides, but then if you have your elevator pitch ready, then I think that's a good way to start.
Really, and what do you recommend in an elevator pitch? What are you looking for from that kind of a pitch?
Yeah, so it's just selling your brand pretty much, right, in a short span of time. So literally think of an actual elevator, and if there is, let's say, the president of the company that you want to work for, and it's a really short ride, what do you want them to know about you before they get off the elevator?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually my favorite interview question. I say to someone, okay, before we get started, tell me about you. What about you outside of work? What do you enjoy doing outside of work? I want to get to know you a little bit better before we deep dive into the professional questions. So when someone does ask you a question, or if you do go to do an elevator pitch, you can definitely entwine some professional things, but let us get to know you on a deeper level. Maybe you like going for hikes on the weekend. Maybe you have a really cute dog and you want to show a photo even. Like, be relatable is the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's great advice. I've got a question here about what you think about coffee chats.
Yeah.
What do you think about those? And do you find ways of doing those within your recruitment activities?
So coffee chats for me, I get a lot of LinkedIn messages just by the nature of our job, which is natural and encouraged. What I personally, you'll never get the same advice, by the way, on resumes, on networking. Everyone has their own style and preference. But personally myself, and I know I can speak for a lot of recruiters within Rogers, we have this conversation. If I've met you before at an event and you reached out to me after the event saying, it was great meeting with you, and then maybe a week, a month, whatever it is later, you reach out asking for coffee, I'm definitely more inclined to do that. But if you add me on LinkedIn, I've never met you before. Yes, you may be a student, I can see that. And you ask me to go for coffee, I probably won't even answer because...
Like, who are you?
I don't know who you are.
Why,
I don't feel safe.
Why am I having coffee with you?
Yeah. And also, if you do ask for that coffee chat, make sure you have a purpose to it and you let us know in that message. A lot of the time I get a message, can we have a coffee chat? In my head, it's like, well, for what? Are you looking for an opportunity now? Co-op? Are you just looking to learn more about Rogers? Are you looking for maybe just my professional advice? So always putting that purpose in the message as well.
Right. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Because we hear a lot about coffee chats, but it's just like being invited on a blind date.
Exactly.
If they don't have that kind of background
and
as
now
to what...
it's becoming such a popular idea that can you imagine if we have like 10 coffee chats a day, we'll be jittering our way home. So we have to kind of like just be mindful, like who do we want to have that coffee with and why? Yeah. Do we know them? So like to Anna's point, like don't blindly reach out and say like, hey, let's grab a coffee or let's get a drink or whatever. It's like, okay, but first, who are you?
At least establish some sort of relationship before going to that next stage.
Exactly. And you hear success stories. You hear those TED Talks or successful CEOs that say, I just reached out blindly and look where I am now, which it works sometimes, but you have to be a little targeted, I think, now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted to actually speak to our audience and thank them for submitting so many questions, because it's been a really lively conversation
Yeah.
with real great nuggets of advice, I think, for job seekers out there. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to turn it over back to you to see if you had any final thoughts that you wanted to leave with some students and grads that might be interested in working at Rogers Communications.
Yeah.
For me, this is an advice that I've given to the nervous networkers who were stepping out of their comfort zone. People, if you don't show that you're nervous, and it's okay to admit that you're nervous, but if you don't show it, we actually won't know. It's very hard to tell. Very, very hard to tell. So like, if you're feeling like the jitters inside, know that it's not visible at all unless you're legitimately sweating. But at the same time, we get that it gets hot at networking events because there are so many people, and then over time, you guys will become a pro at it. Yeah.
I think my piece of advice for networking, and the same thing, if you feel uncomfortable, the hardest part, like you said, is getting to the event and actually just overcoming that thought. Once you get there, I promise it's not that bad, hopefully, fingers crossed. And also, when you're speaking with companies, make sure that you feel comfortable, because if you don't feel comfortable, maybe that company's not for you. So always trust your gut as well. If you have a really great conversation with someone and you didn't know you were necessarily interested in that company, go with that gut feeling, because there may be an opportunity there for you, and it's important to feel comfortable. That's another big piece of advice that I received from someone myself, and it's helped me.
It's terrific. Thank you, Anna and Denise. It was wonderful to chat with you today, and you gave some great information to our audience. Thank you for joining us today for TalentEgg Talks from Rogers Communications in their head office in downtown Toronto. So thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for our next TalentEgg Talks.